What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Hopefully everyone is having a great day. Summer is upon us. It is hot outside, and we have a big show today. A couple weeks ago, our audio producing extraordinaire, Adam, behind the scenes, we got a crew here of some elite personnel that Adam goes, hey, I got Schneider's number from my years producing radio. Do you want me to hit him up? That'd be John Schneider, the GM of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm like, well, I don't know him personally. Not sure he's going to know who I am, but hell yeah, give him a run. And then I get a text back pretty there soon after. It's like, hey, he said he's down. How does 10:30 on Monday sound? I said, yeah. So John Schneider, GM of the Seattle Seahawks, couldn't have been any cooler. No PR, no through the team. Just like, yeah, I'll be there 10:30. And he was there at like 10:25, ready to record. So gave us close to an hour. I've admired this guy from afar. I think even more highly of him now. I say it all the time. You work in this business, you meet people, you get to know people. It's easy to become a fan of a lot of different teams because you're like, I just like this guy. And this guy, you come on my podcast, you give me a lot of time, and I already liked you before, and I didn't even know you. I'm going to be a huge fan. So John Schneider is officially the man, and I'm excited for you guys to see our little talk that we recorded last week. And he's off in summer break, hanging out somewhere, probably enjoying life before the season. But I think he's one of the best GMs in the league. I think most people that I know in the league reiterate that thought, and he's as highly respected in NFL circles as you're going to find, and his resume speaks for itself. Drafting, potential Hall of Famers, obviously Pro Bowlers, and winning for a long time. So excited for everyone to see this, fired up. And before we dive into the GM of Seattle Seahawks, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. Listen, if you're watching this and you're a Seattle fan, if you're watching this and you're a Niner fan, they open up against each other. If you're watching this and you're a Rams fan, pretty big rivalry dating back to Pete Carroll, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, now Mike Macdonald, the whiz kid on defense. If you want to go to a game this fall, do you want to go to a baseball game this summer? Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go to a comedy show? Well, you can search by venue, you can search by the team, you can search by the artist. Best ticketing app in America. I've used them all. I cannot recommend it enough. So here's the thing. If you want to go do something fun, do it on us, save a little money, get out of the house and enjoy yourself. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Let's talk to John Schneider. Okay, very, very excited. I feel like I know this guy, even though I just officially met him about 2 minutes ago. Followed his career really closely, and I banged out John Spytek. Now I got John Schneider, the GM. I just need to get John Lynch, and we'll just make the Johns the GM of the John Show. John, how you doing? What's
Great.
going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is cool. Appreciate you.
Yeah, very excited to have you on. Do you? I know you're a Midwest guy at your core, but you've lived on the West Coast a while. As a fellow West Coaster, are you one
Yes,
of us now?
I'm kind of feeling that way. We were here in 2000 for a year. The year we drafted Hutch and Corn and those guys, that class, and then we went to the Redskins for a minute, and then back to Green Bay. I'm from Green Bay, born and raised, and then we've been out here we just finished our 16th draft, so super blessed to be able to be out in Seattle this long, raise our kids here. It's been awesome.
That's pretty crazy when you think about it in a profession, just pro sports in general, as chaotic as it is. I mean, when you look at your bio, I mean, you spent a lot of time in Green Bay, and now you've been the boss for a long time, obviously with Pete, now with Mike. I mean, it's pretty unique, in your profession to be able to be in one place that long. Obviously, it speaks to you guys have won.
Yeah, very, very, very blessed, to have the one, Mr. Allen, Paul Allen, Jody Allen, like just that one owner. The stability there has been amazing.
When you got hired in Green Bay when you were really young, did you ever have
When you're
visions
really
that,
young.
I mean, were you just trying to survive? You'd be a GM. I mean,
Yeah.
did you ever think back like this? What a crazy life that this turned out to be.
Yeah, totally. At the time, that group that we were blessed enough to start with, I know you work with Andy Reid in Philly, and the group, and I didn't know it at the time, just coming out of college, it was like 1992. Free agency was just starting, so everybody was hiring and knew everybody's going to hire another like pro scout. So the timing was just unbelievable, and obviously, so it was like we prayed super hard on it, and then worked super hard at it. But that group of coaches was like, it was like Andy and John Gruden, and the staff that Coach Homer put together was, ridiculous. Ray Rhodes, Sherm Lewis, Marty Morningwick, Steve Mariucci, and I didn't recognize it at the time because I was just coming out of college and just starting out. We didn't have like all these degrees they have now, right? Like I get these resumes, and guys are like, I have my doctorate in sports management. I'm like, well, shit, I would have never got a job now.
You know what's
Yeah,
funny? Sorry, keep going.
no, go for it.
I get asked a lot by younger people, how do I get in? How do I get in? I'm like, well, I don't know. I went to work for Coach Hill and he knew Andy Reid. I mean, I got pretty lucky, and I was watching some videos on you getting ready for this, and you told a story how back in the day you could just call someone's office and they would pick up. I mean, I know a lot of
Yeah,
people that know you.
yeah,
I think it would be pretty hard for me to even get your office number. Do you ever
yeah.
look back? I mean,
That
how
was
can you tell that story? How that all played out?
yeah. So Bob Harlan was the president of the Green Bay Packers, right? And he had just hired Ron Wolf, and I knew I wanted to do this, but I didn't know how to get in. To your point, but so I was going to coach. So uh, I was going to be I was history and secondary education at the time, University of St. Thomas and St. Paul, and basically Bob hired Ron Wolf. And so I was reading all about him, and Ron was a history major, did an internship with Al Davis, and just that's how he found his way. And I was like, oh shoot, maybe I'll just take a shot. Maybe he'll take a liking to you know like small town, like same town Packer kid, all that kind of stuff. And so I wrote him like a big letter, telling about my story and all that, and then I got the rejection letter, so like I wrote him another one, and basically kind of stalked him for a minute. And I just it was Memorial Day weekend. It was like 91 or 92. I think it was 1992. And we got rained out in northern Minnesota, and I was with like one of my best friends, and so we were camping and we got rained out. So we were back at our place in St. Paul, and we had read about Bob Harlan and Ron, how they like, they would answer their phone like randomly, like it wasn't below them, like yeah, when their assistant was there, they would answer the phone for them. But if they were there on a weekend, like it was like there was a story like in the Green Bay Press Gazette or something. I forget exactly how it happened, and I got Ron's number through a family friend, and so my buddy's like, maybe just give him a call. And so I think I'd had like 2 or 3 rejection letters at the time, and then I just called him, and he was in there studying on a Sunday afternoon, Memorial Day weekend, and we just started talking, and it's a 5-hour drive, from Minneapolis to Green Bay, and he's like, "Yeah, I know who you are. You're that freaking weirdo that keeps writing me letters," and I was like, "Yeah, I can be there, and I'll be there in 4." I'll go like 80, I'll come down there. So I went down. The following like Tuesday or Wednesday for an interview with Ron and Ted Thompson. John Dorsey was there. Ted and John Dorsey had just started, and Brian Broaddus was he works with. I'm not sure if he's still working with Dallas, but he was there as well. So I interviewed with those guys, and then yeah, we just hit it off, and $175 a week, and let's rip.
What's crazy, it's safe to say scouting is at least from the outside, viewed as a sexier profession in 2025 than back then. Probably much smaller staffs than
Yeah.
the crew that you have employed. So probably an incredible opportunity. You just get in. Favre had just been traded. I mean, I was born in the mid '80s, and I was a Niner guy, so that rivalry had really started taking off. But I don't remember the Packers ever being shitty. I mean, they were not good before Holmgren, Favre, and Ron Wolf and Reggie,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so you kind of came in.
So,
They weren't just this rolling machine at the time, were they?
no, Ron and Coach Holmgren really changed the whole culture with the Packers. And yeah, I'd actually gone back to school. So I was still in school. So we had like a J term thing, like 6 weeks, in January. And so I had gone back and so I went like a summer with them during an internship. And then I came back, and that was the first year of unrestricted free agency. So, I remember writing a report on Marcus Allen that was like a page and a half, and Ron read it, and like he would critique we actually wrote them at the time, and I remember him throwing it on my desk. He's like, hey, he gives it back to me. He's like, I don't have time to read War and Peace. I'm like, okay, I get it. So that's okay. I need to condense my thoughts. I need to communicate in a more clear manner. And like, so that really, he was super generous with his time to like teach us. So like I said at the time, it was like John Dorsey, Ted, myself, and he really taught us how to write. And, being a history major, a ton of papers, writing a lot, that helped a lot. But on his staff at the time, his scouting staff, there were 3 gentlemen: Ray Wyteka, Hog Hanner, and Red Cochran, and those guys were all on Vince Lombardi's coaching staff. Offensive line coach, defensive line coach, running back coach. So all of a sudden I'm like thrown in these meetings with guys that, Coach Bart Starr and Paul Horning. And it was just like, and there was a big gap. There was like young guys. I'm not sure if you know Sean Harrock and Scott McLuhan.
Because Harrock was with the Raiders for a while, right? After we were
the young guys. They're all like Scott's my age, Sean's a year older, but we all kind of came in at the same time. And then there was this big gap, like, these guys that had coached and scouted forever. So we would just sit there and like listen to these guys tell stories, and like what a blessing, like what a learning experience, with all these guys. And John, that's like my first exposure to scouting and like real football, it is like Division III. You got Fresno with Coach Hill. I mean, that was a big deal. What a learning environment for you, right?
Big time. I mean, you went in, the NFL. I mean, when was the first year of free agency? Was that 94 or 93?
93, I think, because I think the lawsuit was Freeman McNeil and Reggie White and Don Mikowski, actually. And it was actually in Minnesota. Judge Doty was his name. And they ruled in favor of the players. And so at that point, there really wasn't guys switching teams. Was really there was a thing called Plan B. So pro scouting at the time was really more about trades, waiver claims,
advancing opponents,
and then advancing, yeah. And then it was just, and then Ted Thompson and Ron, they both loved college scouting, so they would leave in the fall during the week, and all of a sudden, like, I'm sitting there with Coach Holmgren and all these like amazing coaches, and like working with the trainers and the equipment guys, and setting up workouts, and like it ended up like I wasn't running the office, John, you know what I mean? But I was like, okay, you better figure this shit out, or you're gonna be out. You know what I mean?
And there wasn't text messages or anything, so it was just you there with Mike and the crew. Yeah. Was there a moment?
Memo, the pink memo notes, like, no, I put the pink memo note on your desk, Coach. Like,
the NBA Finals are here, and this is your last chance to bet on the NBA until next season. And the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is pulling out all the stops to make it a finals to remember. One team will be crowned the champ, and the other will be lost to history. Who you got winning it all? Obviously, everyone's picking the Thunder. Not going to lie, don't hate dabbling a little on the Pacers. 5-1 to win the series. It's the NBA Finals. They just destroy the 1 seed, the Cavs, work the Knicks. I think people are sleeping on the Pacers a little bit. I get the Thunder are good, but I think people are underrating the Pacers. All season long, DraftKings has been the go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Who you got carrying their team to the chip? Try placing a bet on your personal MVP to drop 30, 40, or 50. I would expect, obviously, Shea, but definitely Halliburton to have some big games. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and finish the season as a winner. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers, bet $5, win $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Don't miss your last chance to bet on the NBA season. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Was there a moment earlier in your career after you kind of just could keep your head above water and breathe and kind of realize, okay, I'm going to be here, where you're like, okay, I'm actually pretty good at this, either through something with Ron Wolf or Mike Holmgren? I mean, Ron's in the Hall of Fame. I think Mike probably could easily be.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I think probably, when Ron would, so like Reggie McKenzie and Sammy Seal. You must know Sammy, right?
I know Sammy, yeah.
Yeah. So so I'm like 22, and he kind of like, I would read their reports and help them write. They were ahead of me from like just football knowledge and the NFL world and all that. But I was kind of helping them like condense their thoughts again, and writing Ron had a specific report outline that we still do it. Like we have guys interning, interviewing for internships right now, and I take them through it, right? And so I think at that point, like when he allowed me to kind of like help those guys, it was kind of like, oh wow, I could, like, I'm on the right track. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
Specific players, or because I started on the pro side, right? So I went to the pro side, and I actually didn't do like much college scouting until I came here in 2000.
Talking to my buddies that will see you out at college games. And, to my knowledge, you've been doing that throughout your entire career as a GM. And I would say that's not always normal, right? I mean, some of these guys can just be in the office a lot. It's something, is it you take a lot of pride in? It's just something, like you said, you just saw Ted Thompson and Ron Wolf do it. It's just the way you operate.
I think guys like Jason Light, now Spy, I think they would tell you it's like your safe space. It's like okay, I get to do what we do. Because being a general manager really is managing in a general fashion. You're doing like there's things that we're just not trained for, and there's an adaptive piece that comes along with it. And you're a leader, you're a communicator, you're a counselor. So I think being able to go to those games. I just love college football too. I love the tradition, the pageantry of it. I love I love walking through the band. I love listening to the band. You know what I mean? I just love all that stuff. And then, being able to see, and this is like a Coach Holmgren, Ron Wolf thing too, like being able to see quarterbacks, how they conduct themselves, and corners, probably the biggest thing you can take away from a live look like that. And Seattle's hard. It's helped now with the Big Ten coming out here. We've seen like Ohio State down at in Eugene, Michigan was here last year too. So that's helped a lot. But it's a difficult place to scout from. So when we travel east, we usually try to go early and hit a game. Maybe it's a Thursday night game, or a Saturday game, and then go meet the team somewhere else.
Will you look ahead when the schedule comes out and try to map it during the spring, or is that way too far ahead and you kind of get a better feel during the season?
Yeah, we map it out. We're actually, we're done with that. And now it's like, okay, whatever pops up, during the season, there'd be times where, I'd be planning to go somewhere, and then, Pete and I would have a fire to put out, or there may be something coming up at the end of the week that we didn't necessarily feel comfortable being apart from each other. So, we need to, stick, to being a united front. So, you set up your schedule, and it's like, all right, if I can make it, I can make it.
You got hired. Were you in your late 30s when you got hired with Pete?
Yeah, I was 38. So John, I was like this. I was like I said, really blessed to start out early, and then was kind of on this like really fast track. Like I was, I went to Kansas City to work for Coach Schottenheimer. Terry Bradway hired me there.
His son Mike's a good friend of mine.
No way.
I love Mike
Oh
Bradway.
my gosh. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. They used to play with like their little wrestling guys when I was there. Anyway, now you make me feel even older again. But anyway, yeah. So when I went there, I was 25, and all of a sudden I'm sitting in across from Marty Schottenheimer talking about like, should we start Elvis Gerbach or Rich Gannon in the playoff game? It's like, whoa, I'm not qualified to be doing this. But yeah, just I think like that. Just so I was like on this trajectory, and then Coach Holmgren and Ted came out here, and then I came out. So we were Kansas City. Tracy and I were in Kansas City from 90. It was like 97, 98, 99. So we just won the world championship in New Orleans against the Patriots, and then so we picked up. We literally. So yeah, we literally moved from Green Bay to Kansas City. We got married, went to Kansas City, was there 3 years. Then we came out here for a year. Then Marty Schottenheimer got hired in Washington to be the head coach and general manager. So now I'm 29, working for, I was like, whatever, vice president of football ops or whatever, working for Coach Schottenheimer and Daniel Snyder, like, that's a whole different learning experience too, right there. That was like, we were there. I think we were in our house for 8 months. That was 9/11. It was just a crazy year, but it felt like that experience right there was probably like 3 years packed into one. It was a crazy year. You just did a lot there, and then yeah. So then you get fired. So now it's like, okay, well, you have to kind of like you have to kind of like, I don't want to say reinvent yourself, but like, pick yourself up, quit feeling sorry for yourself. I remember Sammy Steele being like, because I went back to Green Bay, and Sammy saying like at one point to me, he was like, hey man, like we need the old John back. Like you need to like get your head out of your butt, because you kind of feel bad for, you're like, you get fired. It's like, whoa, I was on this fast track, and all of a sudden you're just, so it was really, Green Bay was a great experience there going back. We were there for 8 more years, and then came out here. We were playing Arizona, and I was going to, I had my book for Mr. Allen and Todd Lewicki, and like it was going to, I was planning on hiring, like whoever got this job was going to hire a head coach. So I had like 30 pages in my, book of like all these head coaches we were going to interview and get rocking on. And we were playing Arizona on a Saturday. So we're flying. I wake up like on a Friday morning, and this like thing comes across a ticker that the Seahawks hired Pete Carroll. I'm like, well, I guess we're not moving to Seattle, babe, and they called me and they're like, no, like we really want this to be this really cool. He doesn't want to be the general manager. He wants to have influence in who the general manager is going to be. So he's going to sit in on the interviews, and we think this will be a great. And I'd been here for years, so I knew the people in the building. I knew it was a great organization. So we came out on a Monday and interviewed, that Monday. And then I flew back to Green Bay, came back. But yeah, I was 38. Sorry, that was a long answer. I was 38 years old. Yeah. Sorry.
That was great. I mean,
rambling. Sorry, man.
Interested in investing in Bitcoin, but not sure how to get started? With the Gemini credit card, you can dip your toes into Bitcoin without even trying. Just spend like you normally do. Groceries, gas, or even a night out, and instantly earn up to 4% back in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account with no annual fee. The Gemini credit card is a no-brainer. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin intro bonus. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more and start earning today. Terms apply. Again, go to Gemini.com/card and start building your Bitcoin stash today. Terms apply. The Gemini credit card is issued by WebBank. In order to qualify for the intro $200 crypto bonus, your application must be approved by June 30th, 2025, and spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. Terms apply. Some exclusions apply to instant rewards, in which rewards are deposited when the transaction posts. This content is not investment advice, and trading crypto involves risk. For more details on rates, fees, and other Gemini credit card terms, see rates and fees. You work with Pete for a long time, and obviously, you have so many guys that come through. You guys have so much success. And then your task, what was it, last January, with hiring a new head coach, especially in a division with Kyle and Sean. It is a little sexier, I think, to say that, like, people want to hire offensive coaches, but your experience, you've seen both. I mean, Holmgren, obviously Marty, Pete, you've kind of seen them all.
Yeah.
Did you go in pretty open-minded to that situation? Obviously, Mike's defense was just, I mean, I knew a guy in Baltimore, his nickname was Boy Genius, so he's pretty highly thought of.
Yeah.
If Mike was calling offense instead of defense, I mean, let's face it, the way he would be talked about, the way we talk about offense would probably be a little different. Just that experience going into that open-minded, was he a target? How that played out?
Yeah, you're on it. You're on it. He was, kind of, I had the same experience that you did. I heard a lot about this guy. I read a lot about him. I wasn't able to hit Michigan the year he was at Michigan, but obviously we saw the result. I think, yeah, you're going into something like that. You're extremely open-minded. My background, let's say, you lean towards the offensive coach, stability with the quarterback, and that's legit. Mike McCarthy's one of my closest friends in the industry, and so we were part of that hiring process with Ted Thompson in Green Bay. So I felt like I had a pretty good feel for like where we were headed. But once we were able to speak to Mike, because they had the buy, and all the stuff with Pete we didn't with ownership, Coach Carroll, all that wasn't settled like right away early in that week. So whoever has the buy, you can interview that first week after the season, and we weren't we weren't approved by the league yet to get going, and so we weren't. There was a chance. I was just. I remember being very nervous about the ability just to interview him, because like, do you wait through the Super Bowl or not? And the guys, Chad Brinker in Tennessee, Dan Morgan in Carolina, Rich McKay in Atlanta, they had all interviewed him. And so, I had a very close relationship with all those guys, and they're like, man, your personalities would be great. And he blew, like he was amazing in the interview. I can't remember the Atlanta situation. They hired Raheem pretty quick. There was a couple of days where guys got hired pretty quick, but Carolina and Tennessee were going offense, and so we interviewed. It was going to come down to that championship weekend, and so we were either going to. I remember basically, this is so bad, but I remember going to church basically praying on like, I really hope Detroit loses and I hope Baltimore loses today, the championship weekend, and they both did. I was like, oh, now I got to go talk to these guys and tell them I was hoping they lost.
Is there a way to fix that? Because it's hard because you've been in these situations where you're making Super Bowl runs, and you want these guys to have success, and financially it changes their life, but also it's like we're trying to win. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for it. Is there?
There really isn't. We've discussed it over the years, league meetings, number of committees that we're involved in. There really isn't a perfect. I mean, I think we're constantly like we do every year. We're constantly trying to tweak things to improve the product. So I think that's something that we'll discuss as well as we move forward. But yeah, we went through it with Gus Bradley, Dan, DQ. It's like it's so interesting because you're kind of helping guys. You want to help them get ready, and then you're playing in big time games. So. And I think DQ went straight from here to Atlanta. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Do you feel a different pressure now with Mike, given that, you're the veteran. I mean, literally, you've been in the league for a long, long time, and he's young. It's almost flip-flopped like with Pete and you when you were onboarded, I guess, back in 2010.
Wow, great question, man. Yeah. It was. Yeah, I definitely feel like the older brother, much like Pete was with me. You know, I don't know if it's pressure, because we're every day is you're just stacking to get better every single day. So that hasn't changed, but it's definitely more of a, I could talk to Pete about, like studying Brett, to your point earlier, like, yeah, wow, you got to have patience with quarterbacks. I mean, Brett was like, that was my first exposure to a big time NFL quarterback. Like, there was a lot of interceptions, you know.
Yeah.
But just I could talk to people about that, and whereas Mike's kind of like, wow, what was Brett Favre like? That sort of stuff. So the experience is different, right? Like we're getting ready to draft Russell Wilson here. He was targeted, and Pete and I are sitting on the phone, talking to, Coach Grant about Fran Tarkenton, like on the phone, like lack of height, great feet, moving around, it's like, it's just different. Pete's 20 years older than me. And, I say, Mike's 38 and I'm 54. So, we went from having a partner with Pete and all that experience to a 38-year-old guy that's, brains on fire and just a really clear, intelligent communicator.
Clearly, a tough part of the league is, especially in a program like yours where you have a bunch of success and have like legendary players, is either not extending them, cutting them, and you've had since you've been the GM. I mean, it's just public because these guys are really famous. But when Pete was there, it wasn't like good guy, bad guy. It was like you guys were kind of lumped together. Pete's pretty famous too, so it was like it was just on both of you guys. Does it feel more now that like in a weird way? Now you have I would say a little bit of a younger team now, so ideally it plays out where you have these tough decisions, but you kind of take on the role as the bad guy now in some of these tough situations because he's the head coach, or is it just have you even thought? Do you think about it like that?
That's it. No, yes. I'd be lying if I said no. It's just it's the nature of our job, right? The head coach has to get up in front of the team every single day, and project that leadership and I got your back. And then, yeah, somebody has to be the parent. Somebody was just asking me this the other day. Just a friend of mine was asking about it. He's like, do you ever feel like the mom? I'm like, wow, yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it. Like, at some point, whether it's negotiations or, rules or, the decisions that we make, it's somebody does have to be, the bad guy to your point. And that's the nature of this position. And I don't think that'll ever change. And you can't shy away from it. Mike talks about it, like, going through, not around, like we go through it. So we attack everything like head on. And I think it's a really cool way to look at things. And we've always conducted ourselves that way. So yeah, keeping it honest, keeping it real. That's the responsibility of a general manager. And, you want to be able to take as much off the head coach as possible so that everything that's put on the field, the players are like, okay, coach has my back. He's going to teach us. I'm going to get better. We're all going to have success together. And that really is, like I said, it's a cool partnership, but they're just to have this, well, you've seen it. It's just different roles.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was the owners' meetings or maybe it was at your pre-draft press conference where you just kind of came out because you were asked about the Geno trade and you said, "Hey, we offered him money, like we tried to extend him." And I was just thinking, like, would you 10 years ago would you have been that candid in that situation or just kind of played the GM cliche role? Is it safe to say? I mean this in a good way, like your give a shit level of like worrying about everything. You have more confidence now. You've done this longer, where it's easier to be open about a situation like that. Or is that something that you would have been pretty transparent with no matter what? Because you're like, we like this player. I mean, that was the reason we signed him. I didn't try to
Yeah,
just trade him for a third round pick for the hell of it.
yeah. I think, yeah, it's basically, how would you describe it? Like any job, your confidence level is going to just by the nature of the different experiences that you put together over the years, you're going to have your confidence level is going to improve. There's no question about that. But yeah, I think one of the coolest things that I learned from Ted Thompson, God rest his soul, and Marty Schottenheimer, God rest his soul as well, was that how you treat players. Both those guys were like, nowadays will be your like 53rd player every year, worrying about making the team. Really good special teams players. So how you treat, especially somebody that like never had like anywhere near the opportunity to play in the National Football League, how you treat the players with like clear honesty and integrity and understanding like what they're truly going through and what the locker room is going to look like. So I think that the experience I had with Ted and Marty really helped me in terms of like, you're not always going to like what you hear, but you're going to hear the truth. And we can disagree on whatever we're discussing, but I'm not going to be sitting here trying to BS you.
You've been pretty open with the DK situation too about the lines of communication, his unhappiness. You were honest with where you stood with it. You're talking about a third contract guy. Do you think looking back at some of your situations, whether it's with Sherm or Bobby Wagner, those guys over the years, make those situations easier for you to handle? Because it feels like that trade and that situation was relatively seamless, at least for the outside for you guys. I would say, you've had a lot of good draft picks in your career. That's got to be up there near the top. This was a pretty integral player for you and one of your crowning achievements as a GM, drafting a guy in the late second who what do you have, 28 touchdowns through his first 3 years of his career or something?
Yeah. Yeah, I think every situation, every individual is very different. And you can learn from, there's situations that we've been through that for one reason or another, the lines of communication get jacked up or the timing's off, or, we've had several players that represent themselves, Russell Okung, Sherm, Bobby. For a while there, I felt like we were the testing ground for that, but those are those are always really difficult situations. And
so is that you and him asking, like he's just peppering you with questions about his contract and you are talking like you would to an agent, or do you have to massage that one a little different?
Yeah, you have to massage it a little different because like no matter what, you're agents, there's a buffer there, and it helps with a certain level of communication that goes into the seriousness of these talks. And so when you're constantly trying to adjust the way you're speaking, because like these are all, like we've all been through negotiations, it gets really personal, and you could say it's not, but really it is. And so in regards to DK, we had a ton of conversations last offseason about like his legacy, where he wanted to go. He stayed, he wanted to be here. Once he met the new coaching staff, he was excited. And then, this year it just happened again. You can't change the way people think. As much as we love him and we want to have him here, when people want to leave, it's difficult to try to convince them to stay. So yeah, we just had, very honest communication, like for probably about a month and a half. And I asked him to just take some time and think on it. And then he did. And then by the time we got to the combine, I say that in regards to like Bobby and Sherman Russell, because I had that relationship with him. So I was speaking more to him than I was his agent. And so once we got back from the combine, we had another real open talk. And then we told him we would, concede to his wishes and no promises, but we'll see where it goes. And Pittsburgh, Omar and those guys are really aggressive.
Do you ever get numb or do you feel numb to the amount of money as the GM you're negotiating with, just to these player contracts? And I would imagine you deal with coaching contracts too.
Yeah.
Where, when you first got to Green Bay, what did Reggie sign for? $3-4 million a year? Couldn't have been much.
Yeah, it was a total of I think they had $24 million like in their coffers, and I think they gave him 14 of it or 17 of it or
Yeah.
something like that, right? Yeah, that was like
That's
that
like
was
a that's like a
huge.
Cooper Cup signing bonus now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've tried to surround myself with younger talented guys like Joey Lane does our cap for us now. And so, he's like, okay, yeah, $10 million. This is what it means, John. And then it's like, okay, they could show me like every position, and that helps me. But yes, you're right. It's like, whoa. And then when I see when I see like the baseball contracts and NBA contracts, I'm
Yeah.
just floored. Our ownership group, Jody owns the Blazers, too. Mr. Allen, ran the Blazers, and I always pepper those guys and their GMs about like the guaranteed money. Like it floors me. But hey, at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right? It's entertainment business, and we're all blessed to be a part of it.
Okay, a couple quick scouting questions for you. Sam Darnold, you guys signed him. Obviously, the connection with your new offensive coordinator, Kubiak, who was with Kyle, and they were with him. Do you go back? Like, how much do you rely on him coming out? The information, is that more character based, play based, and then evaluating the play over the course of his career and how Sam Darnold ended up as the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, really just preparing for, what that period of time right around the Senior Bowl and the combine is really like a preparation for like what's the landscape going to look like and how quickly can we pivot. So, if things are going a certain way with the negotiation, how do we pivot? So getting everybody on the same page. So relying on Coobs for sure, like the experience he had with Sam, Kevin O'Connell, professional friend of mine. Uh, Ryan Grigson is there now too in Minnesota. Rob Brzezinski. You're relying on our contacts and like the character, the leader, everybody that's coached him over the years, and then watching his progression and watching him improve. We don't have NFL Europe anymore, and so these guys, they just the twos and threes, they don't get the reps they used to, and we don't have as much time with them to develop these guys, and so talking to everybody, that it's the same thing with Geno. Like all the coaches that had coached him, like my contacts over the years, like talking to them about how he's improving, he's improving this area, he's improving that area, and then to put that on film too, to sit and study as a group, to have like sit down with Coobs and the offensive staff and Mike and work through the process of evaluating his progress and what that looks like, and can we help him, can we not? So yeah, the character, it all goes in, all the character, all the background that we've learned over the years from from my friend like Fit and Scott Fitter and Dan Morgan, those guys in Carolina, and then all the coaches that have been around him with the Jets, and then Coobs in San Francisco.
Well, Geno and Sam, I think, are good examples. Like everything you've ever heard about him, great guy, great guy, great guy. And I'm sure you hear that when you're scouting a player like that, or from other places. But like when you're going to sign a guy, you extended Geno, or first signed him, I guess, as the backup originally, but Sam as your starter. At what point do you go, okay, I got 15 people telling me, like, I feel really good about bringing this individual? Because you can't just go off, hey, Middlekauff told me he spent the weekend with him. Awesome dude. Like, there has to be some
Yeah,
sort of line. It's like, we're good with
yeah,
this.
yeah. That's where we've made some of our biggest mistakes, is just not taking as much time as we possibly we should with all the contacts that we have, right? So have we covered all of our bases? Have we checked all the boxes, and making sure that we're we're signing the appropriate person for our building, because we think we love the people, whether it's our equipment staff, video, our trainer, our sports science group's amazing. So how can we take care of these people, and are we going to be able to support them? And so that's really the bottom line with it, and just where he's been going, seeing him, having having Coobs, Clint, with him in a very very similar system. It's hands on. So yeah, it's all of it.
Okay, couple quick draft questions. You draft Zabel, the North Dakota State offensive lineman. Felt like there was a lot of buzz those last couple weeks where you get hurt and get
Yeah.
nervous. Like way too many people are talking about this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. We better draft him or we're going to get kicked out of here, No, yeah, we were, we had heard whispers about Dallas, I think Dallas was 12 right in there, 12 or 14 there. And
They were
so
12.
12. Okay. Yeah. So, when once Booker was like, whoa, okay. So now it's going to start coming towards us. So, we'd flirted with going back a little bit. We definitely really wanted to pick a couple of times in the second round. We really liked the second and third round this year. So yeah, once to your point, once Booker was taken, we decided like, okay, like we can't, I want to say Minnesota was 24 or 25. So we were like, we can't go past, that area as we kind of felt like they would be looking for offensive line as well.
Is there a point where you have to get to feel comfortable with a smaller school player drafting them really high? North Dakota State, you could argue, is borderline like Boise State or something. So it's not like
Yeah.
tiny, tiny, but it's
Yeah.
relative to Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. It's definitely a gap.
Yeah. That's like Jim Nagy in the Senior Bowl experience, right? Like seeing him down there and being able to watch him, Greg talking about now, like jumping in, stealing reps, left guard, center, right tackle. I mean, he was like, just like if any of those offensive linemen were like just chilling in those drills, he was jumping ahead of them, and trying to steal their reps. So watching, you could see him compete against, his big time, like to your point, the SEC schools, defensive lineman, and the defensive line group was outstanding down there too. So that's where, the comfort level, and then just knowing that, like their championship team, I think, all those guys were like our starters in the NFL now. So seeing, the background, the history, they're taught real well there. And being able to have that Senior Bowl experience firsthand is really impressive. And then, Matt Berry and is an offensive line expert here. Steve Hutchinson, was a Hall of Famer, has been working with us. So having those guys, their comfort level as well. And then having the coaches buy-in was huge for us.
Emin Wari, your second round pick. I don't want to compare him to DK, but I mean, athletically, 6'3", 220, 438, 43-inch vert, 20 reps. DK got him there at 27, but similar, just the
Yeah.
explosion. I mean, got to be one of the better athletes you've ever drafted in your career.
Yeah, DK. Yeah, that's a really good point. DK, and the numbers are ridiculous with Nick. I remember, I think we had left. I had to go do something at the combine, so we had left the dome, and we were at a coffee shop or something, and they had the combine on there, and he ran, and I was like, they showed his testing numbers, and I was looking up at it. I was meeting with an agent down there, and I was like, well, there he goes. We won't be able to draft him, So yeah, the numbers were crazy, and he's so young. That's the thing. Like 21, like 3 years really playing. They didn't know if they were going to play him at linebacker or safety at South Carolina. He goes there, they throw him in, with the safety group. They lose two starters like first quarter or first half of the first game, and here he goes. He's starting, and it's really like that. Those 3 years go quick. I mean, I know you probably felt like that scouting too, like how fast that goes.
Jalen Milroe, if you just watched that first half against Georgia, I remember sitting on my couch that night game, you could have argued he was the best player in the country. I mean, so
Yeah.
he's shown in the highest level, brightest lights. Obviously, he's had a coaching change, lot of moving parts, but the highlight plays, and again, you didn't draft him 10th overall. I mean, this was a third round pick. From a character
Yeah.
standpoint, everyone seems to like him. Freak athlete. Uh, that the process of evaluating him when he came onto your radar and how that played out.
Yeah. Nolan and I saw him play live we flew to Madison and saw him play there, and it was very impressive. First of all, when you see him in person, like, whoa, this is the guy running 22 miles an hour right here. This that guy. He's a physical specimen. But to be able to watch him interact with his teammates, how he conducted himself on the sidelines, interacting with the coaches, and then all the different people that have coached him over the years, getting their insight, their input about the work ethic. And that's really what stands out when you're seeing somebody like this, you know. And I go back to Brett again, because Brett was like, they had those wow throws and then those whoa throws. You're like, whoa, that was amazing. Or no, yes, nice throw. You know what I mean? But like, there was a little bit of that with Jalen as well. And then Brett's work ethic, you know, I'm sure you've seen those videos where he didn't know what a nickel defense was, didn't know what a dime defense was. He was just a baller. And, but the work ethic on Brett was huge, and the competitor. And so, you know, I hate like those, you know, comparing the talent levels and all that kind of stuff, but like the makeup of the person. We had him out here on a 30 visit, Jalen, and he really impressed everybody. And I'm talking like I said, like our player development people, the equipment people, our cafeteria, the people in the cafeteria, everybody loved the person. And then the competitor. Now we can see it out here. Excuse me, his work ethic's outstanding. You know, he's here at 6:00, leaving at 7. You know what I mean? He is whatever he said about the worker. And then, you know, he's been throwing the ball real well. And then, by the way, he can take off and score from like 70 yards. You know, it's like, wow, did that just happen? That game that you're talking about, it's like, did that really? What a crazy game, right? Like, wow.
Oh, that was wild. It's not like Georgia has me and you playing on defense. I mean, right? I mean, they got some.
Exactly.
But back to the Darnold, the character, the maturity, factoring that in when you're going to pull the trigger on taking a guy on the second day of the draft coming from Alabama.
Yeah.
The conversations. How did you factor that
Yeah,
in?
it was like, here he is. This is the spot. We're comfortable. We're sticking with our board. And then, you know, we have the buy-in, and here we go. Like, he doesn't have to start like day one, guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody knows that going in. We have a plan, right? And so being able to be comfortable with that. Okay, this is where he is. This is where we feel comfortable drafting him. And, you know, these are the positions we want to hit first. You know, and then yeah, it's interesting when you bring up Nick. You know, Nick, like, I don't want to say ran him down the other day in practice, but Nick was flying across the field and kind of shoved him out of bounds a little bit. You know, didn't shove him for the NFLPA. He didn't shove him.
No,
But he
butt
flew
tap.
over there and tapped him, right? And but our our DB coach Jeff Howard's like, we've seen that, because we literally, like, Nick was the only guy we saw run him down in college. Like, you couldn't find anybody catching him. And so it's just like when you watch him take off, you're like, it's just shocking, you know?
So it's safe to say Seattle's got a little faster in this draft with those two guys.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. It wasn't like a, well, we need to get faster thing. It was like, here they are, and they're good players, and we love the upside.
Okay, I know you're a busy man because I don't know, you run an NFL team, so I'll get you out of here on this. The Gemini.com question of the day. You can get crypto rewards every time you make a purchase. Gemini.com/card. If you could give your 21, 22-year-old self some advice when you were getting hired by Ron Wolf and going to what turned out to be a legendary run with the Green Bay Packers, to the Super Bowl winning GM that you're sitting here right now, what would you tell a young, hungry,
Yeah,
bright-eyed, bushy-tailed John Schneider?
yeah. Uh, have some patience, man. Slow down. Give yourself some grace, you know. And you know, like, easy to say now, right? You know, but we all have goals and ambition. You know, it's like, wow, just sit and smell the roses sometime, you know. And yeah, that just the patience, right? Like, God's got you. Things gonna happen. Things are gonna happen for you for a reason. You know, just have some patience, and yeah, like, things are gonna go your way.
Where are you headed this summer? Anywhere fun?
My niece is getting married in Florence. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. It's a big family trip. Yeah, so it's gonna be exciting. Yeah, gonna go see some family in Wisconsin, some family and friends, and yeah, being here, John, at this time of the year is like when the
I don't
sun's
need to
out.
leave.
No, it's gorgeous. It's water, like, well, here. Let me show you. Yes. I can't. Can I flip it? Here, I'll just go like this. I don't know if you can see it.
It's a decent office view.
Look at that. I mean, like, you know, and then you got to remind yourself of that when it gets dark at like 3:30 in November, you know.
Is that the office you told the story when you were going to get the job that you were promised the overlooking and then Pete took it? Did you steal that office back, or is that?
Yeah, we ended up switching after how many years, right? Like we ripped all the carpet up in here and like yeah, we like made the change. Tim Ruskell was down here and Coach Holmgren was at the other end. And yeah, the guy that was giving me the tours like, well, you know, Coach Holmgren actually has a really cool office. It's huge. I'm like, yeah, I don't need a shower that, you know, handles a 6'5" Coach Holmgren. You know what I mean? Like, but it was fun. Pete and I used to joke about it all the time. It's like, wait a second. I think this was the one. So, but yeah, this is the portion that like looks over the water, and then the other ones that look over the field. But you can still see the water here. But this is a beautiful area.
That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot, John. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time and how much I've just admired you from afar. So,
well, same. Good job with all the stuff you're doing, man. It's fun listening to you guys talk.
Have a great summer,
us.
and we'll talk soon for sure. Appreciate
All right.
you, man.
Have a great summer.
See you, buddy.